some sphere in the cybersphere. We are live, even though I'm not seeing it on the transcorder yet, but we will in just a second. Okay, Jordan, let's do this.
Have a great show.
Thank you.
Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
Thank you to the nice voice who introduces me. I realize the trends that are shaping our future right now is almost an oxymoron because future and now are in the same sentence, but that's the title of my show, The Future of Now. So I'll have to deal with it. Bonnie D in the house, happy to be here, bringing back four of my, if I dare say favorite, my other guests will be jealous, four of my regulars, my rugglucks, who are here talking about surprising uses of AI. And even I have discovered some surprising uses of AI in my travels through media in the past couple weeks. So what I'd like to do is do my opening monologue, which you all know is assisted by ChatGPT, full transparency. I got the you know what beaten out of me on a show recently when I admitted that I used ChatGPT to help with my opening monologue. I was called a disappointing human being. I was told I was shocked that I had no values and no morals. So I hope that this audience is a little bit more tolerant because with 9 guests a week, with bios of 250 to 300 words apiece, think of the time it would take me to write 4-line poems for each guest if I didn't have an assistant. So we'll call ChatGPT my virtual assistant. We'll just go with that. So let's open now. Here we go. Upon the airwaves of tomorrow's grace, Bonnie D, that's me, leads with her Scarlett Mic embrace. I'm holding it. To explore the realms where AI shines with surprising uses. Our future it will define. 4 futurists join her today on Technology Revolution this day. They'll predict an AI future of business and of play. Wave when I call your name. Martin Stenzig brings insights on tech and more, driving innovation so business processes can soar. An advisor with wisdom in tech transformation, Martin's on deck, exploring AI's broad application. Martin, did you like that?
Love it.
Good. I'm glad. You know, I rent these poems out afterwards. We'll talk about a group rate. Bob Ficken is here, professor and leadership coach so keen with that hat, guiding businesses to AI from what was once unseen. From startups to giants, Bob has paved the AI way, teaching owners and schools to allow AI to have a say. What'd you think of that, Bob? Cool beans? He loves it. He's muted, but he still loves it. We're doing the lip reading here. Good, good. Michael J. Goldrich is with us. He's the only other one with a middle initial like me, with a digital AI flair, transforming engagement in ways that are rare. That's a lot of burden on you, Michael. His book on personas shares knowledge so bright, his predictive strategies shape our AI insight. I hope you, oh, he's smiling. Good. I like that. Dan Geller is here, SMB marketing advisor in the AI sphere. It's so big, it's a sphere, Dan. For brands big and small, he crafts strategy so clear. That rhymes with sphere. Within the field experience, Dan teaches the business game, turning AI insights into action to amplify their fame. That's
Love it.
Accolade to you, Mr. Geller. With Bonnie D and brilliant panelists, I'm calling you brilliant. The stage is set to explore AI's upcoming surprises. And yet, in business and daily life, AI's wonders still unfold on Technology Revolution's airwaves. Join us now and behold. So, do I get a thumbs up for that, gentlemen? There you go. I'm allergic to saying you guys, so I won't say that. I'll call you gentlemen or friends or panelists or futurists. Bob, thank you for the double thumbs up. I'm very, very honored. So let's see what we've got here. I have 2 quickly surprising AI use cases before we do the real bios, which will be short this time because everybody knows you. I don't know if you all know, but a chef in Dubai used ChatGPT to come up with a pizza recipe. Did anybody else read about this? No? Oh, well, I did. It started selling like hotcakes. Well, we know how those sell. Spartak Arut head of menu development for the international pizza chain Dodo Pizza, Dodo, D-O-D-O, told the BBC that the recipe was actually a huge hit and it's still on the menu. In a bid to reflect Dubai's culinary traditions, ChatGPT went all out, suggesting a wild mix of ingredients, including Arab shawarma chicken, Indian grilled paneer cheese, Middle Eastern za'atar herbs, and tahini sauce. In simple terms, it decided a cross-cultural hodgepodge of flavors thrown together in a pizza rather than anything original. And the chef said, I wouldn't mix these ingredients ever on a pizza, but still the mix of flavors was surprisingly good. I thought you'd all like that. And somebody else used ChatGPT, suggested a pizza with strawberries and pasta. That was a flop. And blueberries and breakfast cereal. That was a flop as well. And one more thing. How many of you play Wordle like I do every day? Anybody play the New York Times Wordle game? Michael, we got to get together on that. I share my results with a lot of people. So Wordle introduced WordBot in 2022. It's become one of the New York Times most popular features. It receives millions of visits from readers who want feedback on their attempt to solve every day's five-letter word. Now the designers of the bot have created one for the connections game, and I'll just leave it there. So those are my two contributions to unusual uses. Let's go around the table. Quick 2-minute update on bios. Martin Stenzig, you're first up. Go ahead. Tell us what you've been up to.
I've after 25 years in the business, I've decided to take a brief sabbatical from the business and focus on family and friends, which is fantastic. I can highly recommend it. I will come back. Never mind. It will be good, but I will be refreshed and rejuvenated. And as you can see, tanned in the wonderful, nice weather of the Pacific Northwest at the moment.
Lovely. Thank you. And enjoy your time with your family. Very happy for you. I'm happy for your family too, I hope. Bob Ficken, you're up next. You're on the West Coast. Tell us what's up with you. Go ahead. Rocking that hat, Bob. You're up.
I'm celebrating the fact that we had our last 100-degree day yesterday. Next
Yay!
25 days, everything's below that.
Yay. What else you been up to?
Oh my goodness. I've been trying to keep up with all the LLMs being created. Just saw yesterday that one's been created called Chai, which is focused on the discovery of new drugs and all that, and it's going to reduce the amount of time by about 70%, and it'll reduce a lot of the steps involved in the human process of identifying drugs, possible drug solutions and all that.
Well, that would help a lot of people in the health field, wouldn't it? I did a show on the future of life sciences and healthcare a couple weeks ago with I think I had 5 people in those fields from different companies, different organizations. Very, very interesting about advances in solving and in using AI for all kinds of medical devices that'll help with diagnosis and help with cures and help with new behaviors. And we all know that's a good thing. Thank you, Bob. Michael J. Goldrich is back. Michael, what have you been up to?
A couple of things. So I was hired by the Hotel Association to look at how generative AI is being used by sales, marketing, and revenue management, specifically for talent management related to recruitment, retention, and professional development. So I'm approaching this from surveys, interviews, and also business cases. And also the other thing I'm working on is when I was in graduate school, I did my thesis on the technology productivity paradox, which was there's all this investment in the 70s and 80s in technology, but in productivity was expected to go up, but it went down. So why did that happen? So I'm applying the same thing to the generative AI productivity paradox, where you have all this promise of this generative AI, but in reality, all the projects are failing. So I evaluate, according to Gartner, only 15% work, and a vast majority never leave the pilot stage. So my solution to the generative AI productivity paradox is all about, and I was talking to a bunch of hotel CIOs last week. It's very unsexy, but it's AI literacy. So what you do is you approach it from AI literacy and you educate them. So it isn't just about prompting, it's about all aspects of it. And what you do is you empower the associates to identify business cases and use cases in which the technology is effective, and they push it up versus the project getting pushed down. And I believe that will make them successful.
Very interesting. AI literacy. We're still talking about financial literacy for kids. in how to earn money, how to save money, how to invest money. Now, AI literacy. I think that should be a requirement in business schools, don't you, Bob? Bob is nodding. You don't need to unmute right now. We're going to go to Dan Geller. Dan, welcome back. What have you been up to?
Quite a bit. So, I mean, I think when you're around AI, and Michael, I want to talk to you about this stuff afterwards. When you're around AI, there's a lot of things that you can do, spending time looking at models, spending time looking at tools. I'm trying to veer away from that and really focus on actually doing a lot of builds, which I have been doing a lot lately. And have been for the past, let's say year, but I'm really diving into a lot of automations, building out agents. And so that includes building out tools for mid-sized businesses as well as myself, which are actually kind of a lot of fun. For example, I did something today. So I have a kind of second brain system where I'm able to talk to it. It takes everything that I say, formats it, puts it into a database. I can then send it out to do a bunch of tasks. And so the tasks are types of like any type of business task that you would want to say. So I can have a stream of thought. It later gets categorized as, let's say, oh, that was about an email that you wanted to write, or that was about a proposal that you wanted to write. It goes to an agent that I've built, and that runs a process. And going to what Michael was saying, if you have an understanding of what that process is, and obviously I have some AI literacy, you have an understanding of that process, and you can then AIify or automate or build out an agent. So that's what I'm doing. I'm building that throughput. So I do it both for myself and my own business, but also for clients, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. That sounds interesting. Are you offering this as something people could purchase or rent or lease for?
Yeah, I'm doing it a couple of ways. So I work pretty much because very much like what Michael said, I do it on a consultative basis because you really need to get in and understand the process for each client. So while I can build out agents, in order for them to actually work the best for you or for any other company, you really need to know their process. So you have to be in a consultative way. I'm also building out some more of like products that will be a little bit more off the shelf because they're able to do the same SOP over and over again. So it doesn't require as much kind of hand-holding.
Thank you very much. I still think hand-holding's in fashion, Dan, but it depends who the other. Never mind. We'll leave that one alone. Thank you all for the updated bios. Very interesting what you're all doing. And I'm still here, so I don't have to update mine. Here we go. Let's quickly do the opening quotes you each sent me because you spent some time picking quotes. And let's do those real fast, like a minute or two, and then we'll get into the predictions. We have so many to share today. Martin has brought a quote from Shuri, played by Letitia Wright in Black Panther, the 2018 superhero film. And I'll just read the quote. How many times do I have to teach you? Just because something works doesn't mean it can't be improved. Oh, Martin, this is interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Bob was saying. I mean, you see the evolution of LLMs, new versions coming out pretty much on a minute by minute basis. So I think that's classic what we're seeing here, yeah? And people take it to heart. Just because we have a ChatGPT doesn't mean you can't do it better. And I think back to what was mentioned before. What we're seeing now is that people use the LLM essentially as the voice piece or the mouthpiece for other machine learning models. So you have, the generation of new recipes is really has nothing to do with a language model. It's really a more standard AI model, but you're using the LLM in order to sort of flange on the speaking aspect. And I think we'll see more and more of that. So I don't think we are at the end of this ever evolving radical change. But yeah, it can always be improved. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
I think so too. And I think the imagination, Dan, I think you'll agree with this. The imagination we're seeing of people saying, what if, or could it, or would I, or would I like, or should I, or, oh my goodness, all of those are spurring, right, the improvements or the extensions of what we already have, which I think is still just scratching the surface. Scratch, scratch. Okay, let's go on. Bob Ficken, you have a quote from Anton Chigurh. I hope I'm saying that right, played by the wonderful Javier Bardem. No Country for Old Men, 2007 neo-Western crime thriller film. I'll stop there. Here's the quote. What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? Oh, Bob, this is left field. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I mean, we're in the same place that we've been in every show we've done, which is that our government here in the US still has not adopted regulations for the ethical use of AI. EU has it, other civilized countries have it, we don't. So it's very much to me like flipping a coin. Without any controls, we have no idea where it's going to end up. Is it
This
going to
is,
be a good thing, a bad thing, something in between?
and I'm going to ask a question now. Somebody mentioned just AI literacy. Was it you, Dan, or was it Michael? Michael. Okay. Do you think that will stop some of the fear of AI, of people saying, OMG, it will wipe out my profession? I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a designer, I'm a musician. It will take away my livelihood. Does anybody think that the education, because listen, I
Yeah.
was one of the last people on my block to buy a microwave, for goodness sake. And how many decades
Well,
ago that was. Michael, you want to talk to that just briefly?
yeah, and actually the quote that I have is kind of applicable to this. So
Shall I read it? Shall I read it?
read the quotes, and then this is a great segue.
Well, isn't that nice of me to come up with a great segue without even realizing it? Here we go. The movie was Oppenheimer, epic biographical thriller drama film. And the attribution is J. Robert Oppenheimer, played in the film by Cillian Murphy. I think he won a lot of awards for that. Here's the quote: "They won't fear it until they understand it, and they won't understand it until they use it." Oh, how perfect is that? Go ahead, Michael.
So obviously they're talking about the A bomb in that movie. However, I think it's a little reversed. I mean, people fear this technology without using it. They're just because of the concept of what it can do. And so they feel like they'll be displaced. But I think once they use it and understand it, then they'll see it as just a tool that actually empowers them and makes them better at whatever they're doing, unless their job is a task. If your job is just a task, if your job is just to answer phones for a living, that unfortunately you'll probably be replaced. But if your job is multiple tasks and more than just that, then you don't have anything to worry about.
And
So,
we all know that wonderful world of upskilling. It will free you to be a more creative human being who has empathy and thoughts and feelings that artificial intelligence doesn't have yet. I know we can hope, we can hope, we can hope. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to move on with the quotes. Dan, you have a quote from the character is Roland Deschain, Deschain, or Deschain if you don't like French, played by the wonderful Idris Elba. Who doesn't love him? The Dark Tower, 2017 American neo-Western science fantasy film. We got a lot of neo-Westerns in here. Here's the quote: "The future belongs to the few of us still willing to get our hands dirty." Now, there are a million quotes about the future belongs to, and I beat the you know what out of Dan for sending some of those. And he said, I'll find something that's fresh. And here we are. Dan, what's this about?
So this goes kind of loops into everything that has been said already. There are things probably that you can fear about this, but I think if you want to take a positive position in what we can do with AI, you really have to step into the place where you can actually control a new future. I do think that there are things about AI that are scary, and I do think that education helps. I think one of the things that hurts or causes fear is the speed. We can all agree that the speed of what these new capabilities are coming at us incredibly fast. And I think that's what human beings respond to. But I think the opportunity, and I think so if you want to step into a positive role, I think the opportunity is that if you decide to use the tools and the strategies and learn what's out there, we can really redefine what's available to us. And I think that Bob mentioned it, but there's models. I get news from like sources like Google and stuff where there's models that are being built that are helping solve for certain proteins and chains to solve for cancer. I mean, it's incredible because as leaders, they're stepping into roles. And when they hand these tools off to the right types of researchers, we will be able to eradicate certain forms of cancers very soon. So you have to think about the leadership opportunity, and we all have the opportunity to do that. We all have the opportunity to step into that.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of hope in what you said, Dan. If only. Bob wants a comment. Bob, unmute. Go ahead.
Well, this I said before, so I'll make it quick. But before we go too far on the scary stuff, let's remember that AI is projected to create between 200 and 400,000 new jobs more than it eliminates. The difference is you'll have to know how to write prompts and all that kind of stuff.
which AI literacy will help teach people, right? It will help train people to know. Listen, we're already using prompts in our life. Any conversation we have is partly a prompt. It's what do I want you to think about, or what I want you to. If you think about it, life. I have held this belief for a long time. I may be the only one who says it this way, but I believe life is an improv. I didn't pop out of my wonderful mom with a handbook. What do you say? What do you do? What do you wear? What do you go? Oh, yeah, there was guidance teachers and communities and parents and religion and all that stuff. But it's an improv. I'm not reading notes right now. I'm engaging with you. You're engaging with me. So we are prompting. If I say, Dan, here's your statement. I'd love for you to talk about it. I've prompted you. You've given me something back. So I think we are prompting in life. So the question is, how do we turn that into something people will say, yeah, that's really cool, rather than, oh my God, I have to learn something new. I don't want to learn prompting. Michael, I think you had something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, to me, AI literacy isn't just about prompting. It's understanding the technology, it's understanding the ethics, it's understanding
Mm-hmm.
How it can relate to other tools and systems. So sure you can prompt, but to me, that's not AI literacy. And also, I believe
Okay.
it's not a one and done thing. You
Mm-hmm.
don't go to a class, you don't go to a session, listen to it and say, okay, now I'm literate. It actually is more like you actually have to use it and over time, and then you become literate. It's sort of like you don't
Mm-hmm.
learn to read just by knowing the letters of the alphabet and the sounds they make. You actually have to practice it.
Absolutely. And my point was that as people take these classes, or understand that there is an opportunity to learn, they will get more comfortable with it and realize that it's really not as foreign as speaking to somebody who speaks another language, right? Okay. By the way, I took a class in how to use Photoshop many, 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 many years ago when we were buying our software in large boxes that sat on a shelf with discs. Oh, am I dating myself? Discs that we inserted into floppies, or discs that we inserted into our computer. And I learned all of these cool techniques for and by the way, these programs were $495. I think Adobe Illustrator was almost $900. I had my own business. I invested in it. But you know what? Everything I learned in that Photoshop class was completely useless until the day I started using it on my own. And all of a sudden I said, oh my God, here's what I learned. Now, what the heck do I do with it? How do I make it work for me? And I realized it was very complex and not just a one and done, as somebody just said, use this step, do this step, and it'll all be beautiful. So over the years, I dabbled in it and used it, and now it's friendly to me. So yes, you have to use it. Absolutely.
Of
Let's
course,
go to
when you use the term floppy drives, we lose about half our audience.
Listen, kid, you all know that I was a programmer analyst back in the day when programmer and analyst were the same role, programmer/analyst. And I was key punching my code and writing 2,000 lines of code on handwritten over the weekend, and key punching the cards on a Monday morning and having major programs up and running by noon the same day. So that was early. We didn't have a mouse. We didn't have even an online editor where you could type in your code. We punched it into a machine and cards came out. We carried the boxes and we knew all 2,000 pieces of code. I knew every statement. I could memorize them in the middle of the night and I knew what I was doing. So there, Bob, you don't frighten people away, please. I'm not going to do that either. Who would frighten away a redhead with red lipstick who's a tech person from way back in the day? I can tell you that. Okay, let's go to our predictions. Martin Stenzig, we're going to do 2 of your business/commercial uses predictions, and we'll do 2 for each down the line, and then we'll go to the personal. So we got plenty of time. So, Martin, number 1 is automatic dashboard generation, and number 2 is commercial graphic and video generation. Martin, take a couple minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, and they're both in the category of what I would put operational improvements, similar to what Dan was pointing out. We want to make sure is that we're getting more efficient on a daily basis. What are we doing very often is we're building dashboards. So, but you still have to go into your spreadsheets, identify the columns, the rows, etc., that you want in order to come up with a dashboard. The next thing you do is you determine which is the best visualization for this. All of this can be done and automated away these days. So what happens in a lot of these dashboarding tools that we're utilizing in the business sense is you can just say, I want a chart that visualizes X and Y. and it automatically generates that. Not only that, but it then allows you to add it to your dashboard and refine it and modify it. And that's sort of where we're taking the scary away. It's not automatic everything. Yes, it does, but it also allows you to modify it before you're utilizing. So it's not giving you a black box that is invisible. So that's one. The other one is my personal favorite, generation of business graphics. I actually use it. I always have this thing where I'm putting PowerPoint slide decks together and I'm missing a stock footage on the right side. So what I've become to do is I'm essentially just using ChatGPT or the graphics version and say, hey, I need a graphic that, represents X. And ChatGPT just creates 3 or 4. I'll pick one, copy paste it in. Now my slide is not just text, but it actually has graphical representation. So I'm using that quite frequently. And it saves me a whole lot of involvement with marketing organizations, external graphic artists, et cetera, et cetera. They might not be perfect, but they are way better than having a white, right side of your slide that only has text on it. So those are the two that I have.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. And by the way, next week, my show is the future of virtual assistants and AI. And I have 3 people who are either direct virtual assistants for hire by companies and 2 who have their own businesses where they offer those services rather than here I am, hire me. It's I offer these services, a little bit different approach. So I thought that would be an interesting approach. Bob Ficken, you're next. We have 2 predictions from you. One is medical, one is science. That might be an overlap there, a footprint. So Bob, take us through 2 of these, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, on the medical front, I thought this was just amazing. Doctors outfitted ALS patient Casey Harrell with implanted electrodes last year. Experiment was a long shot, but he had lost the ability to speak clearly and navigate on his own. Researchers at UC Davis wanted to recreate his voice by monitoring electric impulses in his brain and using AI to interpret them. To their surprise, it worked better than expected. The device is composed of 4 electrode arrays that can transform Harrell's mouth and tongue movements into recognizable speech. And at the end of this, Harrell was able to communicate over 6,000 unique words with 97.5% accuracy in a voice resembling his own.
Can we say a collective wow? Yeah. Thank you,
That's
Bob.
pretty amazing to me.
It is. And it's hopeful too. And it's positive.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of empathy in there doing it for ALS patients. And what's your second one, Bob?
The second one, Japan's answer to OpenAI, they created the first AI scientist, a system that can design experiments, carry them out, write them up totally on its own. It explores science topics, generating interesting ideas, tests them, describes the results with visualizations and text with near human accuracy. And the model's already generated studies related to diffusion models, algorithms, and architecture of neural networks. Each study costs $15.
What?
To human endeavors.
What?
Faster,
What?
cheaper.
Now, this is where people will say it's going to take away my job. Right, Dan? Yep. Interesting. $15. Wow. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Anybody have any comments on what Bob just shared? Okay, let's go on. We're trucking through this. Michael J. Goldrich. By the way, J stands for what? Would you like to share that with us?
Stands for Jeremy. Although when I was in college, a hacker got into the system and changed everyone's middle names. And so on my official college transcript, I'm actually Michael Jose Goldrich. I actually had to bring a birth certificate in to change it. So I go by Jeremy. Michigan might call me Jose.
I love it. I'm sorry. That's a really good one. I'm glad I asked. Yes, comedy always belongs in a little bit of AI. Comedy lightens it up. We got some spice here. Michael, you've got one prediction on AI to AI economy and one on PhD level AI reasoning. Why don't you take us through both of those, please?
All right. So these are great. So everyone knows like B2B business, like business to business commerce. B2C is business to consumer commerce. I believe that they'll eventually be in A to A commerce. So it's agent to agent. So let's reflect. So right now, like say hotels, like we focus on collecting a lot of personal information so we can target people directly. I think that'll change once Siri with Apple Intelligence gets smarter. I will tell my agent here to kind of everything I need to know, and they'll already know about me, and I'll tell it to go book a hotel for me. So it needs to kind of go out and find that. So it'll book anything, whether it's restaurants, movies, whatever. But let's talk about hotels right now. So the agent here is now going to go out and look for a hotel that meets my specific needs, and then just kind of say, okay, let's book it. So now what are the hotels going to do? So the hotels, they all have websites. I believe eventually they'll all have their own agents that will be out there listening for the personal agents. And then they'll meet at some sort of new distribution channel. And that's where they'll go and transact and negotiate. So the hotel's agent will negotiate with the personal agent. And so that will be, I believe, the coming A to A economy. So that's that piece. So that's that one. Next one, PhD level reasoning. I mean, this is sort of like what Sam Altman talked about. It's like ChatGPT 3 was like a high schooler. ChatGPT 4 was a college student. ChatGPT 5 is going to be like PhD level. So I think the guy who wrote Sapiens, I have it here, can't pronounce his last name. He talked about the most educated people are going to become like the useless class. And so basically saying the more educated you are, the more these agents will actually be able to do what you do. So so when it has this PhD level, like why the people who have PhDs, you could spin up one of these things. And if you want to know all about X, Y, or Z, it'll be able to give you a PhD level understanding without actually having to go to a PhD. So I believe that is going to, as this thing gets smarter, I believe people that are more overeducated will be less valued in our society because you won't need them as much, possibly. I don't want to say people get displaced.
I wonder if that would bring down the cost of higher education, because the cost, Dan probably knows this, he's got kids in that age range. Bob, you want to say something?
I just got an email this morning from that AI newsletter that I subscribe to. OpenAI is expected to release its next version of ChatGPT. They're calling it Strawberry right now in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, and there's a new iPhone coming out too, and I'm on the replace your phone every year upgrade program, and people are saying you don't need to upgrade every year, but this one has apparently a button on the side that'll do photos without having to go to the camera app on the phone. And since I take a lot of pictures of my guests and myself before a show for PR, that could be an upgrade I would be very welcome to. So thank you very much. Michael, thank you for those. Appreciated. Very, very interesting. Yeah, cost of education is interesting. And on my Monday night radio show, which is talking to creatives and everybody, you're all creative. You all would qualify for that. I do birthdays of people in social media who are stars. And we're talking about 22-year-olds and 19-year-olds who have something like between 5 and 25 million followers and 15 million views of a single video. And they're doing a point of view or travel or exercise or making fun of a song or a cover song or a dance video or modeling something. They are making money off of this. The question is, where is education going in our culture if the stars who are making a lot of money are the ones who are doing these things on Instagram, on Twitch, on what used to be Vine, on TikTok, on YouTube? What do we need? What are we looking for? What are we honoring? What are we valuing? But I'm going to get off my soapbox right now. Dan Geller, let's go to your two business predictions. One is AI-driven talent acquisition, and the other one is AI-enhanced customer experience with sentiment-driven personalization. Oh, Dan, tell us, please. Go ahead.
So I think before I go into these, I think it's important to recognize that for people that are ahead, let's say very AI literate, and I would say I'm probably in that camp. that a lot of these things that are like future predictions are actually currently happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Really, right? So, Martin's talking about some of the things, and Martin, I'd be happy to talk about it. I have a project where I'm working on some it's not just dashboard, it actually helps build out plans for financial services based on we have agents that are running these things. So, and we're trying to get to that model. So we've been working on this for a while. And this is just the stuff that I'm doing. I'm building out solutions. I'm not building out LLMs. I'm using it. To the two examples that there's the talent acquisition model that I wanted to suggest. So I'll start there. So right now, some people that may be AI literate know that there are some really helpful platforms and tools that you can use that will go out and find jobs for you, scrape for those jobs, look at your resume, look at your persona, and help build out your resume customized to that job. And they're really helpful, and you have to pay for some of those things. And what that does is it takes the world of, let's say, 10,000 jobs and then brings it down to 300 jobs. And it does a really good job of pushing that information back out to the employer. What I'm suggesting and what I think is going to happen is that it's also the employer is going to be matched. And I think they are already, but they're going to be matched with a lot of the input where they can grab that stuff and then with agents, verify who you are, scrape all your data about not just what's coming in from your, what's your socials, what's your background, whatever. If there's testing and there's some unique thing that's in your skill set, it could dynamically create testing, send you the testing, do the metrics. It can basically do a lead score of employees so that all that stuff is handled before you get your first interview. Or let's face it, you can have even your interview with somebody that you believe is real, but you're actually interacting with a digital actor. And then they're capturing that data. And that's all possible, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing was the sentiment-driven personalization. And I've done a lot of work in past lives at agencies in CX and customer experience. So it's important to recognize that for large businesses and brands to get better, generally, I would say as a creative, as a strategist, one of the core things that you can do is not to actually lock yourself in a room and dream up stuff, but to actually look back at your customers and understand what it is that they want, right? The more you can get into their customers and find out really what are their emotions, not just how they use the product, but what are their emotions. So emotions goes to brand and use goes to UX and UI. So could we find new ways to actually tap into all that data that we know is out there and then actually create dynamic experiences that respond to those things? And so this will show up, right? We'll start capturing more qualified data about who's signing into our website in such real time that the website can update by the time you get later in the page. The content will be speaking more to you because we'll build out personas, we'll build out UIs that go to you. So that could be websites, but eventually that will go to even product development. And I'll give you an example. There was I saw a video, I'm not sure if it's Nike or another company, but they built out with the help of AI, these shoes that they can basically print from a 3D printer. And the shoes I think are only cost like $40. Now they only last probably 3 weeks, but they're customized to you. And so if you want to have specialized running shoes that fit like a glove. And so as time goes on, if they can learn more data, maybe we can get the cost of those shoes, and they're disposable. So they're not bad for the environment, supposedly. So the thing is, if we can learn that data and use AI systems to actually create a better updated product that you're more likely to buy, I think there's going to be a lot of fuel to do those types of things.
And you just veered into the personal predictions. And Dan, to qualify something you said, my show is the future of now. Well, these things you and the other brilliant futurists on my panel today are sharing, yes, many of them may already be in use today. Bob, I want you to look up because I want you to hear this. Bob, you with us? Yes. Okay. Especially the things Bob's talking about, the medical, about the ALS enhancement, the speaking tools. Yes, but my focus is the future of people learning about them and people getting to use them in their future. So Dan, I just wanted to qualify that. Yes, most of what you're all saying exists already, like the ChatGPT pizza. Okay, we got to go quickly. I want to get a couple of personal uses, although Dan, we just had one from you. I love the sneakers that the running shoes that last 3 weeks. The question is, which 3 weeks do you use them in? Is it 3 weeks of consecutive running, or do you wait for special occasions? We'll leave that one alone. Or from whom are you running? Martin, let's go to a couple of personal ones. You have weed and pest identification, AI for fishing, and private pilots. Let's see how quickly you can go through those. Martin, you're up.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you've all seen probably the app that you can get on your iPhone to identify what plant is actually growing in my yard in order to identify whether or not it's actually a tomato plant. God help us that people can't identify tomato plants anymore, but that's a different thing. But identifying what it is that grows in your yard and what to do with this. So I think that will be the first one. We're also seeing it in agriculture, so it's sort of on the personal and business side. But this is sort of something that I think people will very shortly use in their yard to identify, what am I weeding out versus what did I plant in the springtime. The other one that is very near and dear to my heart at the moment, given that I have a little bit of spare time, is AI for fishing. So, if you want to know what's your best fishing spot, what lure to use, what feed to use, these days you can actually get support, and what those AI models do is they look at, reports, they look at water temperatures, they look at all kinds of stuff in order to give you the best fishing spot for where to go and what to fish for. And the last one, I'm also a private pilot, not currently active, but that's one of my passions that I ultimately want to go back into. And I just looked it up. So there's a lot of stuff that you usually have to do as far as analyzing weather patterns, etc. So private pilots, but also professional pilots can use that to help with flight plannings. So you obviously don't want to fly into a thunderstorm. You want to have the necessary fuel load on board. Documentation of where you flew, when you flew it, all of this can be automated now. AI is a substantial part of all of that. So those are the three quick predictions that I have on the personal side but to Dan's point, a lot of it is already there, but we'll see more and more coming out in those areas.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to Bob Ficken. Apparently, I owe you an apology, Bob. I had 3 predictions listed for you that came from somewhere else, according to you. So you're going to talk about AI wearables, personal health, individual creativity, and learning to play music. Bob, fast, vite, vite, as they say in French.
Huh. We'll talk about musical instruments. That's dear to your heart, Bonnie.
Yes.
You can ask ChatGPT to help you learn any instrument. It'll provide a step-by-step learning plan tailored to your goals, whether you want to play specific songs, learn music theory, or master particular techniques. Diagrams for how to play chords and scales, finger placement, strumming patterns, and transitions between chords. Tips on timing, rhythm, and finger strength exercises. The basics of music theory as it applies to guitar or any instrument. It'll track your progress and adjust your learning plan as you improve. Anyone can learn to play.
I love that. I do remember you sent me that. I don't know how it didn't get into my notes. Go ahead with your next one.
The next one we'll talk about individual creativity. Work redesign was the mantra at Canva's Create event, rolling out a slew of new AI-powered features to its 185 million users. The design tools become central to the workflows of many designers, marketers, content creators, and educators over the past decade. And the Australia tech giant wants to take things to the next level with Magic Design, Magic Grab, Magic Media, and everything else. Going to completely redesign work.
Thank you very much. And again, apologies. I remember seeing your prediction about learning to play any instrument. I think that'd be really cool. Okay, Michael, we've got AI friend groups, AI customized TV shows. This I'm interested in, and conversation transcription and analysis. Real fast. We've got 9 minutes left, and I want to squeeze in 3 from Dan also. Michael, go.
Sure. I'll make sure we leave room for at least 2 of Dan's.
Oh, friendly
All right,
fire.
so
Go ahead.
there you go. So AI friend group. So, people are starting to have these AI girlfriends, which is a little disturbing in upon itself. But I imagine as the technology gets better, when people have kids, they're actually going to have AI friend groups where they start. So kids will never be alone. They'll never be bored. And you can design them with different personalities. And based on their development level, they'll be able to interact with them in a certain way. And you'll start to see them. So although they won't be physical, they'll be visual. So I believe that is something that's going to happen. And I think the challenge with that is going to be, how do you deal with conflict? Because if you design your AI friend group, there'll never be conflict. You'll never be iced out. You'll never be excluded, unless a parent is, designs them to have a little bit of that, so they learn how to deal with that. So AI customized TV shows. So see like Sora and how it can automatically create these videos on demand. So I imagine that in the future, everyone will have, you'll have a basic ingredients of a TV show, like say, whatever it is, like Your Honor, like whatever's on Netflix. And you like the show, but you want to customize and make it a little bit different. You can actually will be able to type in a prompt, and then have the basic character. Maybe you can change the setting to be like more Games of Thrones-ish, and then kind of give it all to you across, and you put together, like, I want to see 8-episode arc, and something like that will be created. So everyone's going to have their own shows in the future. That's what I believe. And then I think the last thing is sort of these AI conversation transcription. I think there was a Black Mirror similar to this, where I think what's going to happen is the earbuds of Microsoft are eventually going to be able to have AI, Apple Intelligence in them, and they'll be able to transcribe everything that you hear. So, you'll never really have an argument in the future, say, I didn't say that, because your whole life is going to ultimately be transcribed. Every meeting you have, that you can just go right back to the videotape to see what people said or didn't say. And so you won't have to really, Dan was talking about having like the second brain, like you're not going to have to remember certain things as much, because you can just have to remember when it happened and just kind of key it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happened. So those are my 3 predictions.
Michael, I won't have to save 25,000 emails and 15 years of chats or text messages with everybody. So when my contractor said I never told him I was getting a new sink for my kitchen renovation, and I had to go back through 3 weeks of texts and found new sink all in capital letters with the name of the sink, and it cost me an extra $3,000 of repairs and having walls cut by plumbers and having people come in and drywall and paint and all that just to put in a $500 sink because he didn't get the specs. Okay, so I tried to prove to him, yes, I did tell you it was a new sink, and anyway, blah, blah, blah. The kitchen's gorgeous, by the way, and the painter did a spectacular job. Okay, let's go to Dan. AI-based relationship management, AI as a personal memory assistant. We may have talked a little bit about that already. And this one I love, AI-driven mental health support. Dan, pick and choose. Go ahead.
I'll go to 2 of them. So I'll go to the relationship management and so the relationship. I mean, part of what I described as in my second brain is like I hope and I expect that things will go there. Of course, the speed of which the way I can build it versus a team of very well-funded engineers is probably much different. But the idea is that, and just think about this, in the business world, most of us have a CRM, customer relationship management tool. It keeps data like phone numbers and emails and meetings and stuff like that. But if you could have a personal CRM that was then tied to kind of personas and understood you and understood your cadence of life, where you were in your life, how often you like to meet, what hours you like to operate. And then it could be like with Apple Intelligence earphones is basically suggesting things, making recommendations, or you should send this note to your mom. You should, it's helping you do those things. It's helping you write your emails. So it's helping you be a better person. It's suggesting things. It might even suggest like you work out, looks at your schedule and says, your schedule should be moved around. You could fit in a walk right now. I absolutely think that's available to you. And for example, it can look at, just like you look at Peloton for a period of time, and I think they're redoing it in their marketing campaigns. They're trying to have you work out in groups and invite friends. So it could have a module that basically looks at your friend groups, finds a way for you to socialize, but suggests walking pods or things like that. And it's all being run on a personal kind of CRM, personal agent. So that's the first one. The second one is the AI-driven mental health support. And I'll go back to like this view of the future, like where's the future? Are we 6 months out or 2 years out? Mm-hmm. This view of the mental health support is something that's happening now, and I think it's going to mature over the next 2 or 3 years. And that is that we'll have wearable devices and wink, wink, nod, nod. Pay attention to Apple stock because this is where Apple is going to go with their watches and their earphones. Guaranteed. Is that you're going to have such smart devices that are AI ready that are going to be able to pay attention to your heartbeat, know how much you're perspiring, be able to look at your health history, understand if you're able to hear, like if you're are you missing things? Is your emotions off? And give you subroutines that literally be the person that the whisper in your ear to take you down a notch. I will tell you, I had a acupuncture appointment earlier in the week, and I was speaking with the acupuncture doctor, and he's talking about some of these things that the acupuncturist, he's actually talking about some of the studies that he's involved in where they're looking to move digital health to the place where if they can monitor people, they can suggest subroutines, meaning that devices can step you through to reduce your stress. So you're now in a loop where you're actually bringing your stress down and making yourself healthier before you have to go to a doctor or take on a new prescription.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I was thinking of, well, mental health, we could all use that, obviously. I was thinking of what Michael said. Let me just go back to customizing TV. If we could have a way through AI to rate a commercial that is particularly annoying right there at the time, if we could have a way to change the plot of it. I watch a lot of French language detective procedurals, and it's always, are they going to get back together again? Will she kiss him? Will he kiss her first? I'm sorry, I'm still a romantic at heart. Thank you very much. Dan, those were very, very interesting. And the question again is, who will be able to use these? Who will have access to these? And sidebar, I just sold 75 shares of my Apple stock to pay for my kitchen renovation, but there was a nice profit in there and I kept most of it, so it's okay. That's one of my only 2 individual stocks. Everything else is in baskets. Don't tell anybody. Anyway, very, very, I have to tell my broker that. We'll make a deal on that. So Dan, yes, mental health. Do you think it will be available? We got 3 minutes, just one or 2 lines from you, Dan. Will it be available so quickly to the masses who are suffering? So many people are suffering from depression and sadness and isolationism and all of that. Dan, yes or no? How soon will people get it?
I think it will be available to people. I think the thing is that I'm sure that the psychologists and the psychiatrists of the world want to have data that they actually know that it's actually making a difference. And so I think that'll be like companies like Apple or Fitbit or whatever that are monitoring and making suggestions. But the question is, will the professional societies accept that it's validated data? And so is it a proven kind of recommended, accepted by the insurance industry, accepted by medical, so that it can roll out and grow big? And so I think that's the thing that will decide the speed of which it's available to more people or less people.
Thank you. And my new Sleep Number bed, apparently over the next 7 days, it was just installed yesterday, will monitor my heart rate, my sleep patterns, and all kinds of good biometric data, whether I want to know or not. I know how many times I get up during the night, and I know when I can't sleep, but it would be nice to have the metrics. There must be AI in there somewhere. I want you all to wag your finger, and we're going to do the no, no, no. People say the future is already here, and now my message is, kind of, sort of, it really is, but many of you listening and watching may not have it yet, may not use it yet, may not want it yet, may not understand it yet, may not appreciate it yet. And some of you may be salivating for it to come to a headset, an earphone, a TV, a friend relationship app someday soon. So the answer is no, no, no. 1, 2, 3. No, 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 no. Michael, raise your finger. Come on. No, no, no.
No.
I'm all alone here. This is terrible. Anyway, the future isn't quite here yet because everybody doesn't have it yet. I'm Bonnie D signing off. Thank you to Jordan, our engineer at Voice America. Everybody wave. Don't go away, guests. Wave goodbye to LinkedIn. Wave goodbye to Facebook twice. I have 2 pages. Wave goodbye to YouTube. All my shows are on YouTube. And wave goodbye virtually to the Voice America Business Channel. We are out. Jordan, are we done?